The mansion rose above the city like a monument to excess, tall iron gates, marble pillars, glass walls that reflected the sun as if the house itself were made of gold. People slowed their cars to stare. Some admired it, some envied it. Few ever wondered what kind of lives unfolded behind those walls. Inside, everything gleamed. Chandeliers sparkled like frozen fireworks. Persian carpets lay untouched, as if footsteps were an insult. The air always smelled faintly of imported flowers and expensive perfume. It was a house designed to impress strangers, not to comfort souls. For Aisha, it was just another place of work. She had arrived years ago with tired eyes and quiet hopes, grateful for the job. She cleaned, cooked, and kept her head down. In a home filled with voices that commanded, criticized, and complained, Aisha learned the art of silence. Silence, she knew, was survival. Yet even silence could not hide everything. Especially not the cries of a baby. The child had come into the house like an afterthought, small, fragile, and unwanted. He was related to the millionaire through distant family, left temporarily in their care while lawyers untangled complicated affairs. Temporary, they said, but days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Aisha noticed things others ignored. The baby startled easily. Loud noises made him flinch. Sudden movements made his tiny body stiffen with fear. He cried often, not the hungry cry of an infant, but a deeper sound, heavy with confusion and loneliness. Aisha understood that cry. Every morning, she carried him near the window so he could feel sunlight on his skin. She sang softly, old lullabies her mother used to hum during power outages and long nights. When he smiled, her heart felt lighter. When he cried, her chest ached as if the pain were her own. But not everyone felt that way. Elena arrived in the house like a storm wrapped in silk. She was the millionaire's fiancée, beautiful, elegant, admired by magazines and social circles alike. She wore confidence the way others wore clothes. Her voice was sharp, controlled, and used to being obeyed. To Elena, the mansion was hers already. The staff were shadows, and the baby, an inconvenience. That morning, Elena woke up irritated. The night had been restless. The baby's cries had echoed down the halls, slipping past closed doors and expensive curtains. To Elena, the sound felt like an insult, proof that something imperfect existed in her perfect world. She descended the staircase slowly, her heels clicking against marble. Each step echoed, carrying her annoyance forward. The baby cried again, louder this time. Elena's jaw tightened. Why is it still crying? She snapped, not looking at anyone in particular. Aisha stood near the sofa, gently rocking the child. Dark circles framed her eyes from another sleepless night. Still, her arms moved steadily, protectively. He's frightened, madam, Aisha said softly. He had bad dreams. Elena scoffed. Babies don't have problems. People create them. She poured herself coffee, grimacing as the cry continued. Make it stop. Aisha tried everything. She checked the bottle, changed the blanket, whispered prayers under her breath. The baby's tiny fingers clutched her sleeve, as if he sensed danger in the air. The cries grew sharper. Elena slammed her cup down. I said, make it stop. Aisha swallowed hard. She had seen this look before, the tightening eyes, the rigid posture. It was the look Elena wore when something challenged her control. I'm trying, madam, Aisha said. Please, he just needs time. Elena turned slowly. Give him to me. The words were calm, but something beneath them felt wrong. Aisha hesitated. Her arms instinctively tightened around the baby. Madam, she said carefully, he's sensitive. Maybe it's better. Elena stepped closer. Did you not hear me? The room seemed to shrink. The air felt heavy, suffocating. Other staff members lowered their eyes and disappeared into nearby rooms. No one wanted to witness what came next. In this house, survival often meant pretending not to see. The baby whimpered, sensing the tension. His cries softened into broken sounds, like sobs trapped in a small chest. Aisha's heart raced. Please, she whispered, don't be angry with him. He's just a child. For a moment, Elena stared at the baby. Not with love, not with concern, but with irritation, like one looks at a stain on a white dress. I am not angry, Elena said coldly. I am tired. She reached forward. Aisha stepped back without thinking. Madam, please stop, she begged, her voice shaking. I'll take him outside. I'll make him quiet. Just, please. Begging was dangerous. Aisha knew that, but some instincts are stronger than fear. Elena's eyes flashed. How dare you tell me what to do in my own house? This isn't about the house, Aisha cried softly. It's about the baby. That single sentence crossed an invisible line. Elena laughed, a short, humorless sound. A baby does not control my mornings, she said. And neither do you. She grabbed the baby from Aisha's arms. The child screamed. The sound cut through the room like glass shattering. Aisha reached out instinctively. No, please. Her voice cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. She felt helpless, small, replaceable. Elena held the baby awkwardly, frustration written across her face. The crying grew louder, more desperate. Stop it. Elena snapped at the child, as if he could understand. Aisha's hands trembled. Please, madam, she begged again, desperation pouring into every word. He's scared. You're hurting him. Something dark flickered across Elena's face. Not guilt, not mercy, but wounded pride. She hated being challenged. She hated being told she was wrong. And in that moment, she made a choice. A choice born from wealth that had shielded her from consequences. From arrogance that had never been questioned. From cruelty she didn't even recognize as cruelty. The baby's cries echoed once more. Then, the room fell into a terrifying silence. Aisha froze, her breath caught in her throat. Her world narrowed to the small, fragile life in Elena's arms. Something had shifted, something irreversible, and as the golden walls of the mansion reflected the morning light, the house that symbolized perfection began to reveal its darkest secret, a secret born in silence, sealed by power, and witnessed by a maid whose desperate pleas had gone unheard. To be continued. Chapter 2. Silence is often louder than sound. In the vast living room of the mansion, that silence spread like a shadow, thick, suffocating, unforgiving. The chandeliers still sparkled above, indifferent to what had just occurred beneath them. The walls, once proud symbols of wealth, now felt like witnesses to something they could never erase. Aisha's knees weakened. For a moment, she could not move. She could not breathe. Her eyes were locked on the baby, small, fragile, unnaturally still in Elena's arms. The world around her blurred, sounds fading into a distant hum. Give him to me, Aisha whispered. Her voice barely existed. Elena did not respond immediately. She stared at the baby as if seeing him for the first time, not as a nuisance, not as noise, but as a consequence. Her hands trembled slightly. The control she prized above everything else had slipped, just for a second, and now she didn't know how to take it back. I didn't mean, Elena began, then stopped. She hated unfinished sentences. They made her feel weak. Aisha stepped forward, tears streaming freely now. Please, she said again, the word breaking apart in her mouth. Please. Slowly, almost mechanically, Elena handed the baby over. The moment the child was back in her arms, Aisha felt the faint rise and fall of his chest. Weak, but there. She pressed her ear to his tiny body, whispering prayers she hadn't spoken since her own childhood, prayers made not of words, but of desperation. Breathe, little one, she whispered. Please breathe. The baby stirred slightly, letting out a soft, broken sound, not a cry, but proof of life. Aisha sobbed. The sound shattered whatever composure Elena had left. Stop that, Elena snapped, though her voice lacked its usual strength. You're overreacting. Aisha looked up at her then, eyes red, fearless for the first time. He's a baby, she said. Not a thing, not a problem, a baby. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Elena turned away. She told herself this would pass. Everything always did. Money smoothed rough edges. Influence erased mistakes. People forgot, especially people who depended on her. She walked toward the window, crossing her arms tightly, as if holding herself together. Behind her, Aisha carried the baby out of the room, her steps unsteady but determined. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't wait for instructions. In that moment, instinct overpowered fear. Upstairs, in the quietest room of the house, Aisha laid the baby down gently. She checked him again and again, afraid to blink, afraid that if she looked away, something terrible would happen. Minutes passed like hours. Downstairs, the front door opened. Footsteps echoed. The millionaire had returned early. He was a man used to control, over markets, over people, over outcomes. His presence alone usually shifted the mood of the house. Staff straightened, voices softened, problems hid themselves. But that day, something felt wrong the moment he stepped inside. The house was too quiet. No music, no greetings, no movement. "Where is everyone?" he asked sharply. No one answered. Then he saw Elena. She stood near the window, pale, rigid, her reflection fractured across the glass. She didn't turn when she heard his voice. "Elena," he said again, slower this time. She swallowed. "You're home early." "Yes," he replied. "And clearly, I've interrupted something." His eyes scanned the room, taking in details others would miss. The overturned cushion, the cup spilled on the table, the air thick with tension. "Where's the baby?" he asked. Elena hesitated. "He's with the maid." That hesitation was enough. He moved past her without another word and climbed the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last, guided by an instinct he didn't want to trust but couldn't ignore. From the hallway, he heard it, a soft sound, fragile and uneven. Aisha sat on the floor, her back against the bed, rocking the baby slowly. Her face was streaked with tears. When she saw him, she tried to stand, panic flashing across her face. "Sir, he raised a hand, stopping her. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Aisha looked down at the baby, then back at him. Her lips trembled. She could lose everything by telling the truth. Her job, her shelter, her safety. But she thought of the baby's silence. Of her own begging. Of the line that had been crossed. She begged her to stop. Her voice shook. "I begged her to stop." That was all she needed to say. He stepped closer, his expression hardening as he took the baby into his arms. The tiny weight felt different now, heavier, more real. He had avoided involvement, told himself it was temporary, not his responsibility. But responsibility had found him anyway. He turned to Elena, who stood frozen in the doorway. "What did you do?" he asked. "I was tired," she said quickly. "It was crying all morning. I didn't mean to." "To what?" he interrupted. "Scare him, hurt him, silence him." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, she had no defense. The man looked at her not as his fiancée, not as a symbol of status, but as someone he no longer recognized. "Get out," he said. "What?" she whispered. "Get out of this room. Out of this house." "You can't be serious," she said, her voice rising. "After everything." "After what?" he asked coldly. "After I saw who you really are." That night, doors closed, some quietly, some forever. Doctors were called. Statements were taken. The staff spoke in hushed voices, no longer afraid. Truth, once invited in, spread quickly. By morning, the story was no longer confined to the mansion. Whispers became rumors. Rumors became headlines. The perfect engagement shattered. Invitations were cancelled. Friends disappeared. Elena watched her world collapse, not because of lies, but because the truth finally mattered more than money. Aisha stood at the edge of it all, holding the baby, watching from a distance. She expected punishment, blame, dismissal. Instead, she was told, "Thank you." The baby recovered slowly. Each small improvement felt like a miracle. Each smile felt earned. One evening, as sunlight faded through the same golden windows, Aisha sat quietly, the baby asleep against her shoulder. The house was still luxurious. The walls were unchanged, but everything else was different. Because wealth could build a mansion, arrogance could rule it. But one cruel act had exposed the truth hidden behind all that gold. And in the end, it wasn't power that decided what mattered. It was a maid's courage, a baby's silence, and a moment that shattered everything, so something better could finally begin.